Normally, I don't do a preamble to our episodes. However, we've had a couple of things happen with this episode that I felt it was necessary to give you a little bit of a heads up. First off, our wonderful guest, Stephanie Czajkowski, she sounds like a robot in this episode because, unfortunately, due to an unknown technical issue, it recorded her vocal track twice and we were unable to split it apart. So that's why she sounds the way she sounds. Also, normally when we swear in our episodes, I bleep them out because I do try to make this a little bit more family friendly, PG-13, that kind of thing. Well, in this case, we wanted Stephanie to be able to be herself, speak how she wanted, and speak freely. So this is your heads up now that this episode is completely uncensored for language and content. This is Treknicity.
July 21st, 2014.
As one of the hosts of a podcast that I'm extremely proud of, I have to say that despite it being as much a hobby as anything else, there are some really good perks to the job. I've attended events, been witness to some really cool things, and I've been privileged enough to interview some amazing people. Today is no exception. Joining us from somewhere in the Trek sphere is our very special guest, Ms. Stephanie Czajkowski, whom Trekkies and Trekkers will know as Lieutenant Teveen from Season 3 of Star Trek Picard. However, she's so much more than that. From her charity work to her roles on and off the screen and being a cancer survivor, Stephanie has made it a mission to spread awareness and advocate for those who have had to fight this terrible disease. This is Treknicity.
There
Welcome to Treknicity, a Star Trek podcast where we do the deep dive on all things Star Trek. I'm your host, Lars DeSenza. With me are my co-hosts, Mike Raper and Patrick Murray.
For the second time since this episode started.
Hey.
Okay, I'm just making fun of you because I can.
Of course. Well,
let's just get to it.
Sure. In this episode, we're going to be talking with another Star Trek alum who has made an incredible impact on the franchise as a fascinating character, the aforementioned Lieutenant Veen. But Lieutenant Teveen. God, man, I can't speak today. Man, who's running this show anyways?
You.
But that's just scratching the surface. Stephanie Czajkowski has graced us on stage with Playwrights Horizons in New York and Steppenwolf Theater Company in Chicago before becoming a full-time Angelino. Thank you very much for joining us, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's great to have you.
Yes.
So, as I mentioned before we started rolling, I'm sure you've done a number of these podcasts and whatnot, and a lot of it's because a lot of us Star Trek nerds want to talk to people who are in the series, and one of the cool things I guess is I've been able to keep an eye on things. I follow you on Instagram. We're friends on Facebook, and I follow you on TikTok as well. And it's really interesting to see that it's kind of cool. Like when you see that a person is so much more than what you see in whatever role they play.
Yeah.
And then when you start, everybody knows that the role that somebody plays on a TV show, a movie, and also what we see on social media is very guarded, is very curated, and often very scripted. So you don't often get to see the real sort of things. You don't get to see the real person because, of course, everybody wants to put their best foot forward. One thing I really have enjoyed, and I mean, to the point where I'm getting up at 8:00 to watch an Instagram live, and because is the fact that when you do talk, it's not about hi, I am an actor telling you what I am as an actor. It's hi, I'm Stephanie. This is what's going on in my life, and this is how I see things. And let's just have a good old chin wag. and I think that's very refreshing. I enjoy it greatly. You know, I think I may even have mentioned at one point. I know it sounds like I'm going to totally fanboy on this one, but so please forgive me.
You fanboy, I can't imagine it.
Yeah, we'll have to tell you the story about how I
Fanboyed a lot, yeah.
oh
Later.
in the worst
Yeah.
possible way.
No, I've done that too. It's all, you're like,
Yeah, and yeah, but you know, going through all this stuff, you know, your character on Picard was actually the direct inspiration for the very first character that I played in Mike's Star Trek Adventures game.
Oh,
And he was a Vulcan Deltan.
no.
And
He's dead now,
yeah,
just so you know.
unfortunately,
Apparently, you just don't stick around.
no, they do not. Man, Deltans just got it bad. Really, I mean, they really got the short end of the deal. They're like the most sexually attractive species in the known galaxy, and somehow they end up getting blasted on the first mission. Who knows? The hell.
It's a lot of pheromones to have to ward off. It's just easier to kill them.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I would hate to see what it would be like for a Deltan and Green Orion women to go toe to toe, but I digress. So let's talk about Star Trek Picard,
Sure.
because that's mostly what people who do watch this podcast, all 6 of them, are familiar with. Despite I watched you in Doom Patrol as well, and I'm sure by tonight I'll get up to episode 14 of the Rookie. But what was it like to, I guess, to join the fraternity, or whatever you like, the Star Trek family, if you like, especially being on a set that looks, I mean, just from our perspective, looked incredible, just looked amazing.
Yeah.
And what was it like to put on that uniform, to step out there, to work with the likes of Sir Patrick Stewart, Todd Stashwick, Jonathan Frakes, so on and so forth?
Well, I think that you're never really prepared to put on the uniform, because you get the job and you're like, oh my God, I'm joining this thing. And then there's that moment where you walk on the bridge and you're like, can I swear on this? You're like, holy fuck, I'm on the bridge, dude. And you're just like, oh my God, I have my own seat. Oh my God, this is my science panel. Oh my God, there's Patrick Stewart. And in the meantime, you're just trying to keep cool. But inside you're like, oh, look at where I am. There is something kind of religious about it. Especially if you are a fan of the franchise, if you're a fan of the show, being able to walk in something that is so beloved and knowing that you get to be part of that canon it's an otherworldly experience. It really is. The thing that I've said over and over again is, because it's also work, so then you just get used to it, right? You come every day and you get used to it. And the thing that Jen and I often talk about, who played the communications officer, have talked about is, I would make a point when I was on set, when I was there, to take it all in, to remember the fact that I was there, because I knew that it would only last for so long, and to just kind of really, I guess, bathe in the fact that I got to do this,
Well, that's yeah. I mean, it's like I guess I've been a fan of the entire franchise for so long that when we see new things, we're kind of caught between the "ooh, it's shiny" and the and the "oh God, what are they going to do now?"
Right.
In fact, our the episode that we just finished recording before we started this one, the actual title is called "Why Star Trek Needs More Star Trek." And it was a very critical breakdown of how we felt that the franchise itself had steered away from what its core values and principles had always been since the original series back in the 60s.
In other words, we started with the Section 31 movie.
I was going to say, like, I've not watched it yet. I've heard a number of reviews.
I have at least 2 face palms in the cold open alone.
Yeah, just don't do it. We'll just take it. We're just doing you a favor.
Watch our
Don't do
episode. That's it.
There you go.
Yeah, watch the episode.
Yeah, I give a whole synopsis and everything.
You can put the dancing baby on YouTube, the Ooga Chaka. Put that on like a 2-hour loop. You'll get more out of that than you will that movie.
No.
Yeah, they tried. I'll give the actors credit. They tried.
Yeah.
Well, and
a good friend of mine who's a big Star Trek fan was like, well, they were taking a big swing. That's all he said. I was like, well, they were taking a big swing. So,
yeah, we and so the reason I mention that is because there's kind of a similar feeling about how they approached or how the showrunners approached the 3 seasons of Picard. Each season had a very distinct, I guess, theme, and when we got to the last one, of course, we colloquially refer to season 3 as the TNG reunion tour.
Yes.
But at the same time, what I did really enjoy about it is that for the first time in these Kurtzman era shows, we're seeing characters that initially you just wanted to choke the living shit out of, but at the same time, the more they go on, they show a side to them. They're like, okay, I'm cool with this, and of course, Todd Stashwick's character was probably a prime example of that. Of course, he's as rough as guts for the entire thing until you see why he's feeling the way he's feeling. Then you're like, oh, I got some sympathy for him. Now, like, motherfucker just got killed. That broke my heart. I'm still like, man, who the hell in here is chopping onions? I hate this guy. What's going on?
We loved hating Shaw until we loved him.
Of course. That's the beauty of him. And it's also one of the beauty that Todd has a special affinity for being able to like take someone who's such a dick and make him so likable. And then to really just layer in that, like, he's just really, really good at that.
When you're talking about when you came onto the bridge the first time and you're fangirling out, it made me think of Daryl Mitchell in Galaxy Quest, and he's like, I remember this. I remember sitting there and like, this used to be forward, this is back. And I'm like, yeah, that would totally have been me. If I ever step onto a real set, I'd just be like, I must touch everything. Come here.
Well, they're going to have that. Apparently they're going to have the set at the Universal. Apparently Universal Studios is doing something where they're taking the set. So, which is good because they spent a lot of money building it. I just wish they would use it again.
So, this is just a personal question of mine, because I remember seeing something when you filmed the Titan scenes and whatnot. Did they film those in Canada or did they film those here in California?
No, we shot in Santa Clarita.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because the building, and I wanted to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, because the building that I knew you guys shot in was literally across the street from my old office.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, because I remember coming in one day and I walked into the lobby and there's posters everywhere on the wall saying, on this date, do not park in these areas because they are filming Picard season 3.
Okay.
I was like, all right then, I know how it is. So, so it was just, it was something I had always wanted to ask somebody who was on that show, and I just remember.
We shot at Santa Clarita Studios.
And, I guess when you're part of a franchise as long and as storied, I think the only sci-fi franchise that has technically run longer than Star Trek is Doctor Who. Does it come with, I guess, the feeling like you've got to lend any real gravitas to it? Did it not? I mean, is it kind of more like a surface level, like, hey, this is a job, this is kind of cool because I like this sort of thing? Or was it more like, holy shit, I'm standing next to Picard not Patrick Stewart. I'm like, the man who took on the Borg and won. I'm standing right. He's right here. He's getting a cup of coffee from craft services, whatever.
Yeah. I think that you have to get over like your admiration for other actors' work, like Amanda Plummer. I mean, there was a moment where you're like, oh God, but you also, to do service to the work, to do service to the franchise, you need to, the emphasis needs to be on the character you're playing. In my case, the Terry Metalis was really, really kind in having Justin, our production secretary, make sure that I had a load of, because we decided I was Vulcan. It wasn't predetermined before I auditioned. It was determined, I guess. My audition was, I was like, oh yeah, I am Vulcan. And then the Dalton decision came later. It doesn't really, because of the look, but it doesn't really fold into like what I'm saying necessarily, right? But then he gave me a bunch of episodes to watch, so that you're you're in the franchise. You're not playing outside of it. You're becoming an addition rather than a distraction, I guess. So you're walking away going like, oh, I'm in Trek, and I fully am in what the, I guess, in my estimation, especially because, Vulcany, there's a lot of legacy and there's big shoes to fill. In my estimation, that you want to make sure that you're fulfilling, even if you're, saying technobabble, you're fulfilling what those characters and what that species has been designed at. And either you're furthering them, but you're always doing it from a place, in my opinion, of the origination. So you owe it to the franchise, you owe it to the fans, you owe it to the legacy to know where it comes from, so that you can be part of it, in the best authentic way possible.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, and it, for, I guess, for us on the other side of the screen, so to speak. Of course, for most of us, Star Trek isn't just a show. It isn't just some,
No,
43 minute, distraction that when we were growing up was once a week. It is, it has grown far beyond what I could have ever thought it would be. In fact, just, there was a point where, I had kind of walked away from my fandom of Star Trek, largely because I had seen a very ugly side of Trek's fandom that I just I couldn't stomach, and that was all to do with a fan production.
Discovery.
Damn it! You beat me to it.
Yeah.
You're my favorite guest now.
Because there's a lot of pushback on Discovery, but I'm just like.
Well, it was a fan production that is still, after 10 years and over $2 million, still hasn't been made, or still hasn't been finished. I'm sorry, it has been made, but it hasn't been finished. And at that point, the fandom had become extremely toxic, and so I came back to it, and a lot of it comes down to, we see. Like when we look at your character on the screen, we don't see Stephanie Czajkowski. We see Tavine. We see.
If I'm doing my job right, that's right.
That's right.
Yes.
We see Hammerhead. It is to the point where we have to suspend disbelief for a moment, because, even to the point, and I'm using the Rookie as another example, just apropos. But again, I'm sitting there, and my wife and I are watching the end of season 3, where a major character dies, and we're kind of looking at each other like, did that just fucking happen? Did that poor dude? And and then your logic brain kicks in for a second. It's like, no, he's fine. He's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all TV. It's all made up. And you're like, shut up. It was bad and it hurt, and somebody's chopping onions again, damn it. But do you see people kind of, I guess, associating you more with roles you've played, whether it be on stage on screen? Do you see people kind of looking at you more like, oh, that's X character, Y character, not just some person who is out there in the world?
It depends. It's only with these. I think film and television definitely has a larger reach, right? Like, whereas I've had bigger roles in theater, not as many people have seen some of the work I've done on stage as have seen the episodes of Picard season 3. Like, I when Picard season 3 dropped, I was getting text messages from people I knew 20 like decades ago on Facebook, like, oh my god, like who I knew from from high school, or like just because suddenly I was in something that they recognized, right? And I think for them, if it's something that they like, there is, it makes me a little, it kind of makes me a little shinier for some people. When it came in particular, like when I go to Comic Cons, that's definitely part of it, because that's why people go to cons, right? To see the people who play the characters that they like so much. And I think more so, I think there is more of I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? When you, the projection of the character I am when it comes to Hammerhead, more so than Tavine, I think. And that's partially because you got to see Hammerhead do more. You get to see different aspects of her character, even though it was combined within one thing. And also, that particular show, if you haven't seen Doom Patrol, like, it dealt with, like, especially with the Janes, it dealt with some really heavy shit. And they did it really well. And so I think, to your point of watching people on television and being affected by seeing a character who is make-believe pass away, is the beauty of the work that I get to do. The beauty of being able to tell stories like this is the beauty of us being able to dive into a movie or a cartoon and be invested in these characters. Often, I think, gives us the permission to tap into the humanity that a lot of times feels like we're not allowed to tap into in our real lives. So it's easier to, it's like there's not even an algorithm, but it's like United just did a commercial about it. When you get into a plane and you watch a movie on a plane and everybody's crying, like for some reason I watch movies and I'm just, there's something about the altitude that makes you cry, but we're more willing, and I think in particular with genre, to see a world as it could be, to feel loss in a way that perhaps even in our real lives we're not necessarily allowed to do, And so just by being I guess, representative of that, sometimes it makes me a little shinier to people, even though I'm just a person,
I think that's what a lot of people who act for a living, it's a reality that everybody has to live with. Is that there will forever be an association between you and a fictional person, or fictional people. You mentioned when you go to cons and stuff, and that's what people want to see. They want to see that, they want to see this person who played this character. Okay, so before I go on my story about the cons, I am going to make one comment, and I'm going to call absolute bullshit on the fact that they fridged 2 awesome characters in season 3 of Picard. They fridged Tavine, and they fridged
Star Trek.
I'm sorry. Oh man. Shelby, Admiral Shelby. Thank you.
Oh yeah,
they fridged Admiral Shelby. Yes, the fact they killed Shaw, that hurt my heart.
I mean, we think he's dead, right? I mean, are we absolutely sure he's dead? Maybe not.
Well, I don't know, man. They brought Kirk back with magic triple blood, so who knows? But
there's a lot of theories how it all happened.
Exactly, it's Star Trek. It's a movie. It's a TV show. They can do whatever they want.
The command crew comes back all the time.
Right?
Yeah. We don't talk to him about it.
I got killed by a reactor in main engineering. I got better,
Yeah.
it turned me into a gore. I got better. Anyways, there was a wonderful story about I don't remember the exact details, but I remember enough of the story that it always sticks with me. There were a couple. They had never met before. They came to the Star Trek convention. One guy I think spoke Spanish. One spoke another language. Neither knew English, and they didn't know each other's language, but they both knew Klingon.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say, did they both know Klingon? Yeah.
yes, they did. And they bonded over that, and eventually they learned enough of each other's language. They became a couple, and I thought that's, to me, that was the absolute real magic for me of Star Trek. Period, is the fact that it wasn't just a bunch of stories about people in the future. It wasn't just about cool technology. It wasn't about the fact, and Patrick will attest to this, apparently in the novelization of Star Trek the Motion Picture, Jim Kirk wanted to have sex with the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Hey, it's the 23rd century. Or as they say, any port in a storm. The idea is that
Any point in the porn.
that too.
That's a big storm.
It's a very big storm. But the idea is that, look, I'm a purist. And I know it almost sounds like an offensive word. Because I always look at stuff that happens in the series and the movies. And I think to myself, what were they thinking? Like, literally.
Right.
Like, holy shit, guys. It's like, we actually had a wonderful conversation prior to even recording today about, I don't know if you've ever seen Star Wars Rogue One, and of course, the original episode 4, the end of Rogue One picks, it leapfrogs right into the beginning of episode 4. And the thing is that they knew about this movie for like 30 plus years. And they're like, all right, how do we end this movie? All right, we're gonna do it right here. We're gonna do it this way. And somebody didn't stop and say, if we're gonna go from here, from point A to point B, you might want to move point A back a little bit just for it to make a little more sense, or change it a little bit so when they get to point B, it makes sense. And that's what I'm talking about. Is when you look at these these different stories and whatnot. I do. I mean, I look at Discovery, and people are like, "Oh, you're not giving it enough of a chance. It was really good Star Trek stories and stuff like that." I'm like, it was Michael Burnham Saves the Galaxy for 5 seasons.
4 seasons. First one, she was just trying to not be hated by everybody.
Oh, well, that's true. But so, like, I mean, again, I call myself a purist because I look at these things and I literally ask, what were you thinking? I mean, somebody paid
that
you
was
money
our last
to do this?
episode.
Yeah. Somebody paid you money to do this? What? But that, I know that often sounds very hateful, but that's not the point. The point is that we are consumers. We're consumers of media. We love bread and circuses. I mean, that's what keeps us, as far as the masses, happy. It'll give us a distraction from our mundane lives. One of the cool things is that we get this break when we get to watch compelling characters, compelling stories. We get to talk to people like you who, I mean, I would have never thought in 1,000 years, back before we started podcasting, that I would ever get a chance to talk, to actually have a conversation with somebody that I have sat there and watched on screen and become attached to their character. So, so again, I try to dial it back a bit and say, you know what, it's just a story. It's a story. Let them have their fun. Go. But ultimately, as a fan, I like to see things make sense, and I love to see, interesting characters. And one of my biggest gripes about things such as Discovery is that, we talked about this before about how different series and whatnot that you remember how they used to be 23, 24, 25
Yes.
episodes. Okay.
Yes.
And then people are like, well, yeah, but they had a lot of filler episodes that didn't do a lot. I'm like, are you hearing yourself? Think about it. We had half a year every week to get to know a character, to get to be in there, to get inside their pocket and find out what this fictional character, what makes them tick. And now we got to do that in less than half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you love Michael Burnham. What? Michael Burnham is a great character. You love her. No, Sonequa Martin Green is a phenomenal actress. And yeah, but you're telling me that I have to do this. And it just for me, it kind of soured a lot of this stuff. So that's why we try to take these things in situations like this and opportunities like this to have these engaging conversations and for me, it kind of ropes me back in and reminds me that it's all about fun and games. It's all about enjoying what we're watching and what we're seeing, because at the end of the day, people are just doing what they're doing. As I love to quote from Muppets Take Manhattan, people's is people's.
That's true. Humans be human.
That's right.
Yep.
So I know I've chin wagged enough about, Star Trek, playing different characters on TV and whatnot. I'd like to, if you would indulge us, talk to you a little bit more personal things about, I'm sure anybody who has seen any kind of biography or blurb about your life knows that you are a 3-time cancer survivor.
Technically 2-time cancer survivor, 1-time cancer tussler. I'm a long hauler. I have metastatic breast cancer, but it is currently what do we call it now? It's my doctor calls it chronic cancer. It's technically referred to as no evidence of active disease. So double cancer survivor, long cancer, and then double cancer survivor and cancer long hauler. I prefer long hauler. That's my moniker of choice.
I like that. Mine is, my doctor calls it persistent.
There you go.
Like that sounds great.
What flavor, if you don't mind asking, what flavor is yours?
Prostate cancer. It was very aggressive prostate cancer. I had surgery, didn't get it all.
I'm so sorry.
These things happen.
I know, but it fucking sucks, man. Like, of all things. There's so many other human things we have to deal with. Like, this is one of the least fun, to say the least. I don't recommend it. Like, 0 out of 10.
No, 0 out of 10. Don't do it again.
Would not recommend.
Yeah.
Do not recommend. I'm sorry. Yes, so I am. Yes, that is my current status.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the whole. I mean, I was kind of wanting to draw into that side of things.
Sure.
And it's, a lot of people don't realize. I lost my stepfather to lung cancer a couple years ago, and to this day, this is just me kind of being me. And I've explained to my family a number of times that I always felt guilty because of the things I'd say. My stepfather had his family, a lot of people in their family lived very long lives.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
most of his family lived past the age of 100. And I would always non-ironically, half jokingly say, you know what? He's going to outlive all of us. I don't know what you guys are all worried about. He's going to outlive all of us. And he was the first one to go. And I always said, I feel guilty for saying that because I feel like Carmen said, oh, excuse me, what were we saying? I'll hold my beer. And that's kind of how it is. But I don't want to blow smoke up your ass and say, oh, how brave you are for having to deal with this and having to live with situation. But ultimately, I mean, it is a terrible thing to have to live through and suffer through. And I've been kind of doing some research since I reached out to you about topics and whatnot to talk about. And you shared with me your the charity you'd worked with which I'm going to go ahead and if I can find my slide, I'll put it right here.
Day it gets really exhausting and you're doing it yourself. And I also feel like sometimes people are like, oh God, this girl again. Just talking about tips for going through the shit that they don't tell you. Like, because doctors like are hammers and nails. They're like, great, we got to cut out the cancer. But they don't, there's so much shit that no one tells you, whether you're going through breast cancer, whether it's prostate cancer, whether it's kidney, thyroid, like just certain things that you really fucking wish you would have known and no one told you. And so that's like, and then it came out of there because a friend of mine who was gracious enough to do a couple videos for me was like, I'm doing this thing, let's go do it. And it's a great charity, like it's a new charity that I'm involved with, but it is for people who've been affected. Are going through it, and then they sponsor them and their families in order, like, because the other thing that, you know, especially with fucking healthcare in this country, is cancer is, even if you've really good insurance, cancer is fucking expensive. It is really, really expensive. And so that's what that charity does. It helps people, it helps with the financial burden when it comes to certain things, when it comes to their families. So, you know, you try and pay it forward in every way you can, in my estimation. Because I got really lucky. I mean, I had 3 cancers in 18 months, I think. Like one just like right after the other. And it was definitely a shock and awe situation. Because we were like, I'm sorry, what? And I had lost my father the year before. And I was very fortunate that you know, we live in LA. My husband's a writer. We had really insanely good health insurance. We had union health insurance. And so the financial burden for us, especially through those 3 surgeries and the chemo and radiation, and like it was so much less than it could have been. And by virtue of that, that was not necessarily something. And my father passed away, and I inherited some money. Like so, it was like this weird. I had a very good, bizarre cushion of being like, oh, I can just kind of focus on getting better. And while it might be traumatic, I also recognize the fact that not everybody is lucky enough to be in that position. And so I made it a point to try to make awareness specifically about early detection kind of a priority, just because, you know, this may be my backpack that I have to carry for the rest of my life, but early detection and being really, you know, open with your doctors, I feel like is really important. And if I can help, you know, to have people catch it early, then I will feel like my life has been, you know, spent in a good cause, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
I
Well,
appreciate that.
God bless you for doing that. 'Cause it's very expensive.
Yeah. Like
Very
it's,
expensive.
it just, I mean, not to like bring it down, like it is that thing that I'm like, this is really something that needs to be fucking, we really need to take a look at this, like as a country as a whole, because it's just, I mean, my husband is Canadian, and I just, the fact that my mother just had like, not to like, my mother-in-law had a heart attack last week, and she's okay. She's like, it was a minor heart attack, but like, they went to, you know, they lollygagged before going to the emergency room. But once they were there, they're like in, out, do the thing, and like they're not freaking out about like a bill coming their way. They're just worried about like rehabbing, and that should be just like a non-starter. Like that should be just the way it is for everybody, because eventually everyone is going to have to deal with either themselves or somebody else having to go through some stuff. And it's hard enough being human
Hmm.
to add all this other stuff in. Anyway.
Well, no, I mean, I look. I'm lucky to have not ever had to deal with it. I mean, most of my problems are simple comorbidities, but it does remind me of my time when I lived in New Zealand. I had a friend who she got breast cancer, and they tested her, and she had the genes that would
Mm-hmm.
that they said basically we could get rid of this, but we're going, it's going to, like, if we don't do something about something more radical, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back probably worse. Like, okay. And she's like, all right. So they did a double mastectomy, and then they did a reconstruction afterwards. But the most important thing, other than the fact that she thankfully is to this day, still in remission, is the fact that she probably spent more on gas getting to the hospitals than she did for the actual treatment, including when there was a crisis of available doctors. They flew her several times to Australia for treatment,
Wow.
and it cost her the big fat goose egg.
Yeah. I think the thing that I always keep going back to is I'm just like, can we just like, where's the Star Trek part coming where we can just scan bodies? The thing like you can do a full body PET scan, like I do a lot of them. But I'm like, it should be like, don't we have a thing we can just scan people's bodies? Like, where's that? We need that to come up because like it's a lot cheaper and a lot easier. Like you can catch stuff early. Let me tell you.
Well, and I don't mean to sound too political, but we all have heard the line that it's more profit in treating the illness than curing the disease.
That is true.
And
That is true.
while that's rather cynical, it is unfortunately the truth. Um,
Well, where you got the American healthcare system, so cynical is kind of built
Yeah.
in.
Well, yeah, it's definitely it's when you go from a not basically non for profit to a fully profitable, it changes those things. But you never know. You never know. There's been events that have occurred that have brought the entire country together in certain respects when it comes to healthcare, and I'm just like, whoa, I never expected all of that. So.
Yeah, that was the bingo. Was the entry on my bingo card that I was not expecting.
So.
But thank you very much for sharing all of that with us and listen to me fanboy out for 30 plus minutes, which was fantastic. I did a better job this time than I realized. But again, thank you very much, Stephanie, for joining us here today and listening to us chinwag about things. Now I'm gonna hand it off to the other guys. I know there was at least one question that Mike had for you that he was talking about before we rolled. So I'll hand it over to you, Mike.
Hit me with your best shot.
And maybe
Sorry, I was on mute for a second. Two questions for you, actually.
Mike's like, I know I'm out. Mute. Done. No.
Yeah, no, I turned it on mute because my grandson is running up and down the hallway. So two questions. First one, if you were gonna be in a Star Trek series, any character that you wanted, if they sit you down and said, write the character you want, what would it be?
It's kind of a toss-up because I really wanted to explore like what it would be to be Tavine in like a real way. There was like part of me that was like, I think that Tavine and Jack should kind of have a Kirk Spock relationship, like bestie friends. Like there's part of me that's like, we've brought Tavine back and she and Jack are in the legacy, like having the Kirk Spock relationship, like best friends. So there's that, but there is also I love Michael Dorn so much, like I kind of want to be his long lost Klingon daughter. And like that we go out and fight with, and he comes out, we go out and fighting together. I don't know.
Well, remember, very important lesson with Klingons: beheadings are on Tuesday.
That is true. That is true.
So, all right, Mike, you guys said you had a second question?
Yeah, so I watched Doom Patrol, and I remember Hammerhead being kind of my favorite of the many multiple personalities that Jane had.
Mm-hmm. It's because she said fuck a lot, isn't it?
Well, it's
Nothing wrong with
not so
that.
much that is the vibe I always got from that character is she takes absolutely no crap from anyone,
Yeah.
but only to people who deserve it. Like
Yeah.
she's very protective of little Jane,
hmm
right? I mean, is that what they told you to do, or did you just sort of naturally figure out that's how you would play her?
You know, it was such an interesting because I ended up reading, well, I mean, once I got it specifically, I ended up reading Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, which is what it was based on. And they were just like, she settles things with her fists, and she's really angry. Like, that was kind of the character breakdown, but it was interesting to me because the first scene I had was the first time you was my first episode and was also the first scene I shot, which is when I actually was with Brendan Fraser and he is come inside Jane's brain and she's like, "What the fuck, dude?" And she like throws him up against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember casting being like, "No, you'd be angrier," and I'm like, "No, not like." There's like she puts up with no shit, but it's the thing about putting up with no shit isn't just like beating people up. It was everything came from this very, very deep place of
Mm-hmm.
love. And that was just something that I guess they didn't tell me. I know a lot of people I've experienced a lot of people in my life, including myself, you know, at various points in time, who don't, and specifically like my dad, just like the men in my life, who don't know how to express things very well. And sometimes it manifests as anger. It manifests as frustration and it manifests as protection and trying to take care of something. And so I kind of reverse engineered it from there a little bit because also we only usually see her inside of Jane's brain. And so there's also this relationship to all these other personalities. So, you know, and then it kind of expanded and changed as we went along because, you know, the writers kind of saw me and were like, oh, we can give her this and we can see some other stuff. Like, so, you know, like Jane and I became kind of good friends and confidants. And it was like, well, what are you doing? No, don't fuck it up. Like, no, you're supposed to be in charge. Like, kind of like Hammerhead was almost like the second lieutenant a little bit, you know? So you know, it wasn't explicitly stated. Um, it was my perception of it, just in terms of how I kind of view the world and how I view, in particular, people who interact in the world that way.
Well, I think you did a great
Yeah.
job
Well,
picking
thank
up
you.
on that because
Yeah.
Jane is certainly the most complicated character in the show,
Oh, definitely, yeah.
and not just because she has a shit zillion personalities, but just the few that she has that really you get to spend time with, you know.
Yeah.
And I have not read any of the books. You know, full
Mhm.
disclosure, I've only
Yeah.
seen the show,
Yeah.
but it was very clear from the start. Hammerhead is there to protect all the other personalities.
Yeah.
That's what she does.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's a few times where as you say, she's not just I'm going to beat somebody up. Sometimes she's almost verbally beating Jane herself up. So, you know, suck it
Mhm.
up, Buttercup.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
you're
there's some
not
of that.
gonna
There was one episode in like season 2, episode 5, I think, where it was like we were fighting over what Kay is allowed to do, and it totally felt like mom and dad fighting over their kid. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of like there was such the nuances of the relationships as the the series went on was really kind of was really lovely to explore. And I know and I'm also just like thank you for trusting me with this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was really great. So
Well,
I
thanks.
think you did a great job of that. You really did.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Patrick, is there anything you want to do wrap up with?
I don't think there's a whole lot I can add here because I think we've covered everything.
And then some. Well, again, thank you, Stephanie, for joining us.
My
Now
pleasure.
now that we've shared this conversation with our guest, the inimitable, I even said it right, Stephanie Czajkowski, let us know what you think. I'm going to go ahead and put your
I'll just follow. I'll just stay. I'll just stay in the good place because I can
Mhm.
follow her there. So That's what everybody in Blue Sky calls Blue Sky. It's a good place. Yes.
Good place.
A good place. Thank you for joining us here on Treknicity, where we do the deep dive on all things in the Star Trek multiverse. I'm your host, Lars DeSenza, and with me has been my co-hosts, Patrick Murray and Mike Raper. And let me find the right buttons. There we go. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Treknicity.com, as well as viewing all of our socials listed here. And then you can find us on your favorite podcast services such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and of course, Amazon Music. If you have any ideas for future episode subjects, please email us at show@treknicity.com or DM us on our social media accounts. And you can also join our Discord, which will be linked below. All right, so right there. As always, here on Treknicity, remember to rock out with your Spock out.
Nice.
And we will see you next time.